Hi, everyone. This is Jen again with Articles of Antiquity. I have Josh Evans here. He is a writer, a painter, a visual effects superhero man in the computer. I don't know. He could probably introduce himself better. He makes movies, he writes scripts, he draws and does all different kinds of things. So why don't you introduce yourself, Josh?
Hello, that was a pretty good introduction. Thanks. Correct. My profession is matte painter, but outside of what I get paid to do, I write screenplays and direct shorts. So that's my life. I'm living in Vancouver, BC right now. I've hopped around the film industry since probably about 2013, and yeah, I've known Jen since long before then.
We've, oh my gosh, we've known each other for such a long time. I've been doing these interviews and I've recently realized that I'm starting with people that I've known at least 10 years. So I think, yeah, you and I definitely have hit we've at least a 10-year mark. So, because I met
I think
you when I
so.
was like 19. So yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah. I'm so
over.
sorry about that. Was it like 20, 2008 or 9 or something like that?
Yeah, yeah, around then. So it was fine. It was a good time. Hey,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
liked you. I liked you then, and I like you now. So the evolution of Josh is been great to see.
Fantastic. It's good to not be enemies.
Also, you have a really awesome production company that you do stuff. Why don't you talk about that? What is it that you do with that?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I have a little studio production company called Hungry Creature Productions, and I run it with my wife. We right now we're focused on making original short films while providing weekly content for our YouTube channel. Everything from film industry deep dives, practices, history, to film reviews, as well as breakdowns on everything from VFX that we're doing on our own short films to scripts that we're writing for our own things. So yeah, Hungry Creature Productions on YouTube as well as every other social media, except we're not as good at those. That's
It's understandable. I mean, honestly, I don't know how any one of you who are watching this interview now have found me, but I know that you do in the strangest of ways, whether you're a fan of something random or a movie or an actor or whoever, but you'll send me a note and say, hey, you should interview me. And it happens. Like, I will always occasionally get people sending me emails in the contact me page saying, hey, my friend such and such, like this recently I got one says, my friend such and such is a painter. You should interview him. Here's his ArtStation website or whatever. And so I've yet to do that yet. So
nice.
yeah, but yeah, it's been kind of crazy to like the amount, the reach that this magazine gets. I'm such a nerd about data. So I'm always like, I'm sure, do you ever look at your data for your production like videos and stuff for
Um,
YouTube?
it's an exercise in futility when it comes to YouTube simply because they change the algorithm so often that at a
Oh,
certain point you just have to kind of give up the ghost of guessing how
or
to
just
approach it.
or your website or whatever. Like, do you ever look at your
The
website?
website I haven't. Um,
Oh,
I'm not
could
super
be really
involved.
fun.
I
Oh,
should. I think it's built into the Squarespace stuff like we were talking about earlier. Hashtag not sponsored, but we could be.
yes. Hashtag unofficial sponsor squarespace.com, everyone. So both of our sites front on.
Yeah.
um, so anyway, since I've known you for now over a decade, which is crazy to say,
Yeah.
did because I know that back into the early years of after graduating school, you and I were like, oh gosh, we can't do this. This sucks. Like, I know briefly you lived in LA with me, and so that was fun to have you, but that was not the greatest time for you. And you kind of had to find your mojo of what you were doing with your life and where you were going with it. And I was just kind of wondering, like, how you kind of navigated from kind of coming from like this awesome art school to LA to finally figuring out where the job actually was for you. Like, what, I know that's like a really long question, but like, kind of like,
Yeah.
how did you end up in as some guy in Canada?
That's okay. It's a longer answer. Um, I don't know if I've talked to anyone in the film or animation industry who doesn't have a overcomplicated, meandering path from college to that point, or at least no one
Yeah.
that I've spoken to. I know of a couple of people we graduated with, um, who were like immediately sniped by Pixar or Walt Disney, what have you.
Mhm.
Those are very rare, and I think the majority of us have a long period of struggling through the wilderness. For me, the first time I graduated with my undergrad was during the 2011 economic recession, which is cute by today's standards, haha. But
Oh,
back then it was a big deal.
I saw a meme today that was about who said that this generations are crybabies after they've experienced not their first but their second economic recession. And I'm like, well, the first one I was going to college, and the second one I'm about to be jobless. Just kidding. I'm gonna have a job. But hey, it's
Oh
the
man, yeah,
artist's
we're getting good
life,
at this.
know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've lost my job so many times that losing my job is like just a part of the thing that happens to me now. It's like not even shocking. It's just more like things like the other person on the other side's like, okay, it's gonna be. I just like, yeah, okay, thank you. See you later. I'm gonna go now. Like,
Yep.
have a great
Yeah.
life. I'm gonna go make more money elsewhere. Like,
I have a feeling it's not just our industries. I think that our generation is relatively migratory, just given the economic reality we live in.
yeah.
But back then, 2011, graduated undergrad. I studied VFX. No jobs. No one was returning my emails. And to be fair, like I was not good. I wasn't even at junior level. I did my best, but it wasn't good enough. So I was living in my parents' basement, wondering what I should do with my life. Scad sends me an email like, "Hey, if you get your master's, we'll offer you insert pitiful amount here off." So I was like, "That sounds like a good deal." Also, I'm an idiot. So I went back. I got my master's. It wasn't a completely idiotic move because I think in those 2 years, getting my MFA, my skill level jumped so significantly just because of how grueling the process was.
Hold
Um,
up, hold up. For some reason, I did not realize you were a grad student. I
yes, I
honestly
am.
thought you were like a junior or senior by the time I had met you. For some odd reason, you never mentioned you were in the master's program, or you did, and you said it so fast that I was just like, alright, he's visual effects guy, he knows everything.
It just didn't seem relevant to me, I think. It wasn't,
Yeah.
I
You
think
were
some
also
people,
my freshman dorm as my RA, so I thought you were forever older than me, which isn't the
well,
answer.
that's how age works. Um, but yes, you're totally right. I think for me, maybe it wasn't such a big deal because I got my bachelor's, then my master's at the same institution. So it wasn't like I am a grad student. It was just like I'm going to SCAD still. Um, so yeah, no, it was it wasn't important to me then, but I think it was important to me ultimately. And I'll get into why, but having a grad degree both opens and closes some doors in life, which I don't think they tell you when you sign up. Um,
No.
so studying for that it was a great experience. It really was. Actually, my whole experience at SCAD was a great experience generally. Um, would I, want my future hypothetical children to go there? Absolutely not. I can't even. My student, monthly payments are so ridiculously high that it's a catch 22. Like for me personally,
Yeah.
do you want to have a really great education where your eventual job isn't really going to pay enough for you to live much, substantially to what an adult would expect you to be living at. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it, but that's just me.
Hey, it's okay, Josh. We're gonna peak when we're like 55. We're gonna win all the awards at about 55 when everyone else is like done and tapped out, and they're like, "Oh, retirement," and we're like, we're gonna be in our prime, like doing
Yeah.
all the things.
We got
Yeah.
this, kiddo. uh,
It's
I
fine. It's fine.
accept
It's
my
gonna happen for.
award. I'm gonna
It's gonna
trip
happen
down
for us.
the stairs like Jennifer Lawrence and break my leg and have to use a walker.
Yeah. Anyway, yes. Continue.
Yeah, okay. So 2013, graduating with my master's, sending out hundreds of applications to every VFX and animation studio under the planet I can, and getting no responses, just like the last time. That's a lie. I got 2 responses, but they were both for unpaid internships. Um,
Hooray!
hey, one in New York and one in LA. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be destitute, I may as well be destitute in LA so I can check that off the stereotype bucket list. So I went down there. It was a terrible experience for me, but I don't know that that was necessarily LA's fault. The weather was gorgeous. The city is fascinating. I'm sure the
Hey,
people existed. Uh,
2013 was like the worst, one of the worst years of my life, but you made it pretty outstanding. So you are one of the
I'm so
highlights
glad.
of my 2013. Even, and I was very sad when you left, but I was very happy for you too.
Well, thank you, and I'm sorry, dude.
It's
It
okay. Hey,
it
I
was
want
such a
I'm
time.
I got to see you, and I also got to meet some of like my best friend. I just celebrated a 30th birthday party with my friend over Zoom last night, and if it wasn't for going through some terrible jobs in 2013, I would have never met her. So I mean, it has some perks and pluses and minuses in life.
I think so. It was. I think it was difficult for me, like emotionally and economically. Emotionally, because like you're kind of I was right on the precipice of being in the industry, but I also didn't
Yeah,
feel enough confidence, and I also wasn't getting paid to be, which is a huge deal when you're trying to exist.
yeah.
Um, I was living in like a one bedroom closet in between Koreatown and Filipino Town, and the neighborhood was well, let's just say the apartment came with free 24/7 music, so it was an
I definitely
interesting
never
time.
saw you in your like. I never went to that apartment. I always saw you in random other places in town.
Yeah, we'd meet up elsewhere. It was one of those neighborhoods where like I'd park my car for a couple blocks away and then just like walk into the area in which I live because I didn't want my car broken into. So, uh, interesting times. Um, so the internship ended. I mostly just did roto work during that internship. And when they asked me what I wanted to be, I said that I wanted to be a matte painter because it was the thing that I sucked the least at. Although I, objectively did suck at that. It would take many years of on-the-job training before I began to feel actually confident in that regard. And I think that's something they don't really tell you at school.
Yeah.
Um, but I had a couple interviews around town with various local boutiques for short-term contract jobs. All of them I either bombed or stuttered at key times. For example, I had an interview with a small studio, and everything was going really well. I was like, man, I've got this. Like, I'm not really sure I can do what they're asking me to, but I said I could, so I know I've got that. And that I sit down with the guy in his office. And he's like, "So, what's your day rate?" And I was like, "What?" So I don't know what that means. Uh, I'm supposed to know how much you're going to pay me to do this? Like, how? In my mind, that was just so bizarre. And I think
Yeah.
it still kind
We,
of is, but that's
we
the way it
need we
works.
need like a class for business class for like if we always come up with these like hypothetical what could be different or better, but I think at least in visual effects we need like a business class like this is how much you're worth and you better not make it bad for you because then it's going to be the going rate for literally everyone else.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, I didn't get that job because after much stuttering around, I asked him what he paid other people um, for similar jobs, and he, of course, was not wanting to answer that question. So then I just said, "Well, whatever's fair," which, of course, they can't pay you what's fair because that's otherwise the industry would stop operating. And he's like, "Yeah, you know what? We'll figure that out internally, and I'll send you an email," which I never got. My bad. I know your worth before you step in the door.
Yeah.
Didn't help me get a job. I sent out so many other applications. Finally, after many rounds of desperation, I got a job at a medical animation studio in Minnesota as a generalist. I
Oh
was not
yeah,
a
I forgot you
generalist.
did that.
Yeah, me too. I try to block it out. It was not a great scene. It was not a great scene. They, I, I made it very clear what my abilities were up front, um, and they were like, "It's fine. We'll train you to do things like animating and rigging and the other stuff we need you to do as well." The training never happened, um, despite asking for it multiple times. So 6 months into my first big boy job, I got fired for being a bad animator, which is fair. My placenta rig just kind of went all over the place. It was basically a slinky. Um, so that was an experience. I felt really bad. They had me like it was one of those embarrassing things where I was like crying leaving the office because it was my first real job. And
Oh,
the the guy who owns the company was such a colossal ass. He's like, don't feel so bad about it. When I was your age, I was homeless. So you'll bounce back. And I'm just like, God, this is not helping. Also, you're a terrible person. Um,
also,
so
you run like some visual effects medical company, which is probably doing great now with VR. Just saying.
yeah. So that was the thing that happened. Hybrid medical animation, 1-star review from me. Uh, Moving on from there, I spent 6 months living in my parents' house again, right back where I was in 2011. Made a short film. It was not great, but I had to do something. Uh, then I got a job teaching at a university in Pennsylvania. Bless their hearts, they brought me down to Pennsylvania, taught there for a semester. I was gonna like try and make it a full-time thing. It was a horrible feeling to kind of like teach something that I felt like I wasn't able to do professionally. It's like, hey man, the professionals won't pay me to do this, but here's how to do it to a level that I can't even get paid to do. Um, and I think that's casting a negative light on it. I think I did have value to impart, and I felt like I was a pretty good teacher. I enjoyed it, which was an unusual feeling. I really enjoyed teaching. Um, but alas, it was not meant to be, because my copious rounds of applications years up to this point finally paid off. One of the largest, most predatory VFX studios, who also beneficially for me takes chances slash advantage of juniors, contacted me and was like, hey, do you want to move to Montreal, work on major pictures as a matte painter? And I was like, holy cow, that's the thing that I kind of wanted to do. I mean, not really. I wanted to make my own films, but to me, it, at this point, I had studied VFX. It was more important that I was able to make a living before I was even able to think about pursuing my dreams. So basically, everything was on hold up until that point. So I accepted the job. I took the job. It was a bit bone crushing in terms of hours and stress, but I loved it. I really thrived as a result of the chaos. Uh, Not because of anything I did, but because I had a fantastic lead who was just the nicest, sweetest man. His desk littered with whiskey bottles. His name was Hubert. Shout out to Hubert. You're the bomb. He taught me everything I need to know. I was terrible at matte painting when I entered the company, and when I left, I felt like I could pretty much handle any challenge any movie would throw at me. I got so many credits working for that puppy mill of a corporation that I felt really good. I left there for a pay raise to get another job at another studio, a large studio in Montreal. Worked there, had a decent experience, and then was um, not sniped, but I was looking for something better. And I also was kind of done with Montreal. Nothing against Montreal, but when you're walking to work and you're breathing normally and your breath freezes on your beard as ice crystals, then maybe it's time to look for a new place to live. So I did that, got hired at Sony Animation in Vancouver, and I've been working here ever since and absolutely loving it. Animation is a godsend. If you can work in animation, do it. People are nice generally. The pace is more relaxed, and it feels a bit more creative. Since stabilizing in the industry, so ever since around 2016 when I got that Montreal offer, or was it 2015? Time is weird. Maybe it's 2016. I've been writing, I've been doing my own stuff, and I finally felt like I've started to take steps towards writing and directing my own films. So I slowly feel like I'm starting to become an adult at, in my early 30s. So yay for that. Finally reached my 20s, or at least what they told me my 20s would be, but it happened in my 30s.
Yeah, no, that you bring up a really good point. I think everyone who thinks that in your 20s you got it figured out is lying to you. Like it's kind of in your late 20s, early 30s that you finally, I think, start figuring out what it is. Like you might not have any money, but you're at least getting towards something where it's gonna like, at least you could be happy at the end of the day, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, life begins to feel
Uh,
relevant.
yeah, yeah. You know, and it's funny because I always knew, like, whenever I was walking around those studios in LA, like seeing those people who had like already had hit the 30s mark and like they're getting married and they had kids and they had like actual decent jobs that they didn't hate. I was like, I'm beginning to wonder maybe if being in your 30s, that might actually be a thing. Like, you might actually, something magic happens and something happens where you actually start enjoying what you're doing because you feel like you actually are semi good at it, like.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combination of the the film industry is well, not anymore, but it was expanding pretty fast for so many years. And the number of schools, unfortunately, were expanding far beyond the film industry's expansion that were teaching, what we learned, whether it was the film track or the VFX animation track, no matter
Yeah,
what it was. So while you do have a bit of industry expansion, you have just a huge multiplication of students graduating with those same skills. So to even get into the industry, well, that's a gamble. On top of that, it kind of gives them free reign to be abusive to the lower level positions, in that they're disposable. They can always grab another college graduate right off the college tree, and if you burn out. So there's a bit of disposability that comes at the lower level positions now, where I don't think it was that different in the past, but I do feel like there was more of a master apprentice vibe to some of the more fine art or hard to learn positions, simply because it wasn't taught in schools. And I think that would have been much more beneficial, because my growth as an artist in the industry happened on the job. And I feel
yeah.
like would have happened for anyone else too.
No, absolutely. I mean, I definitely think the mentor mentee mentality is the only way that you're going to learn. I mean, artists need the mentor. I mean, it's been proven through history that people need someone else who's done it before you to learn from. I mean, the artists of our generation have all had mentors. I even have a writing mentor. I'm in a group for the next 12 months for my writing to be mentored. So like, I'm not going to become the writer I'm supposed to be without someone saying, no, this actually is good, but this is what you need to do to make it better. But like, it's creating it's a very simple thing, but it's like creating that group of people that actually trust you to enough to be like, no, that actually what you did was not good. This is how you do it correctly, or here, let me show you some like things that I found that make you better. But I've also discovered that like the people that you're learning from aren't necessarily the same age as you either. They could be 20 years older than you and in a different perspective, So, because I'm sure the
Yeah.
person that taught you is definitely not your age.
No.
Um,
And I think it also helps you learn faster, because if you're getting advice from someone cares about you, you're less likely to resist the change.
yeah,
Like, I've seen a lot of juniors absolutely crumble when confronted with a particularly surly VFX supervisor in reviews, and they'll have something harsh and probably far too mean to say as a note. And the post rounds, like, the artist will just burst into tears, or some people walk out and never come back. Like, and it's like, this isn't to excuse terrible behavior on the account of film industry professionals. It is certainly a rampant thing in some studios. Um, but at the same time, I feel like you learn to develop your artist's armor for how you interpret things when that advice initially comes to you from someone in a mentorship capacity, because they care about you and they're not delivering it as an insult to you. They want you to grow and to improve.
hmm
So your perspective shifts from any kind of critique being an attack to that critique being something to help you as an aid. Um, I kind of got there the long way around, but yeah, it
no,
works out in the end.
that's great. That's great advice. I mean, I think, um, do you agree that like maybe is that something that artists should strive for, even if it's not at where they work? Like, should they try to find someone who's maybe in their field? And
Yeah.
I don't
I don't
know.
know if they could because we're all so busy. It's just not the way the
Yeah,
industry is built anymore. I think like
true.
if you're in university and you're in college, you're studying this kind of thing, really try and find the professor that you jive with the most, or you could see yourself hanging out with and being a good friend with outside of school. And then just decide that they're your mentor and bother them. Like send them emails for like, hey, I'm working on this project. Can I get your critique on it? Like just do what you can to, you don't want to cross the student professor boundary, but at the same time in your head, you're like, okay, they're my mentor now. I, I'm gonna respond to them like a mentor. I kind of did that at SCAD without realizing it. There was a teacher who was notoriously distracted. A lot of students, I think, had a complicated relationship with his teaching method, but I loved it. His name was Robert Marzowski, and he was very easily distracted in that if you were the first person to ask him a question during class, the rest of the class period would be him at your computer just working through that one issue with that one student, and then the class would fly by. So wonderful painter, absolutely a bit of a absent-minded person,
He
but
did
I was
teach me how to
able,
paint. Yes, I agree with you for sure.
and I was able to con him into meeting with me once a week at a coffee shop to to look
What? I
over.
can't. What?
Yeah. So for
Oh,
like 2 quarters, we would just meet every Saturday. No, it was Friday. Every Friday at a certain time at grounds. What was it called? I think it's closed now. Cafe Espresso or something. I don't know. Downtown
Gallery
Savannah.
Espresso?
Gallery Espresso. That's it. Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
still thriving, I promise. It
Okay,
doesn't
thank
not close.
goodness. I
Not
love that
close.
place. Uh, uh, but yeah, we would meet there just on laptops, and I think I learned much more from those short sessions and hangouts than I did in most of my classes. And that's not to say most of my teachers were bad. I think a lot of them were very good teachers. It's just that kind of one-on-one attention really benefits anyone.
Oh
So
yeah, I mean, I had a VFX mentor too, so yeah,
yeah, so I
he
guess my advice to students is hijack a teacher.
yeah, no, for sure. That's especially, I think I find myself kicking myself for honestly going into film, because I should have done like, interactive design and more coding and stuff, because like I find
Mm,
myself being the coder, or like trying to and failing being the coder, or trying to do stuff that I don't know how to do because it involves like over my head technical things. So
yeah,
like the
but I mean,
artistic stuff is really great though. Like it's
yeah,
important.
we made these choices when we were kids. Like we
Yeah,
didn't know what we were doing.
no. And the world is so much different. I don't think we could have imagined that the world would have TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram, social TV, and things all going to apps. Like
Yeah,
I I don't know. That's hard to really predict. I'm sure the
it
makers
is.
of SCAD, of computer art, had no idea that it would turn to visual effects, which would turn into like SCAD's doing AR now and VR. And
Which is a huge jump from like that didn't even exist when we were there.
no, it didn't. Like we were mad that we couldn't work with the film engineers better. Like there
True.
was not enough like integration, and now I think the school finally listened. It just took a long time for us to leave to find out that it's probably better.
Oh, hey, I had lunch with Paula Wallace, um, like less than a year ago, and we were talking about a
For
lot of
what? Like
things.
how did that even?
I said it casually because it's funny, but I
Oh
was
yeah,
surprised too.
yeah. How did it?
Uh,
Sorry, you can't just say you. I'm sorry. We both went to Savannah College of Art and Design, so you can't just say that you had lunch with the president of the school,
I
which is
don't
a kind of a
know.
big deal.
Someone probably didn't do their diligent research on me and my opinions and my history.
Hmm.
Uh, but they
Probably.
sent me an email and they were like,
Oh gosh.
hey, she's going to be in Vancouver for this kind of thing where we're trying to
Yeah.
find SCAD grads in the area to have lunch with her. Do you want to go? And I was like, okay, cool. So it's going to be her and a bunch of other people.
Oh.
What? No.
Oh, they just never
um,
showed.
I don't know that any other people were contacted or anything like that, but because it was just like us having lunch, and I was like, oh my god, it wasn't that bad because her personal assistant was there, and she is like she's a very fun person to talk to. She's very charming. She's very knowledgeable. She's very impassioned. But at the same time, I'm like, I am eating with someone who could buy me and sell me more times than I have drawn breaths. Like, she could, in 2 seconds, change my entire life by saying, yeah, well, okay, forget your student loans. And then that would literally change my socioeconomic status in 1 second. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't want, it was a weird, it was a surreal experience because
Yeah.
on one hand, you want to have a pleasant conversation with someone who has in some way, shape or form been incredibly, what some people would call successful. I suppose if you're just tying it to monetary gain. Um, that's not my definition of success, but I think that's what the world operates on.
Yeah.
But um, at the same time, there was just this surreal, I felt like I was eating with a leader of a militantly fascist country. And I was not a diplomat. And I was just like, I don't know how to handle this. And I'm not calling Paula Wall a fascist, but I would say, like, the school's marketing has a bit in common with North Korea. So we'll just throw that out there. Um, that's why I think someone didn't do their due diligence, is because I have many glowing things to say about SCAD, but I'm also totally happy and have been in the past saying all of the problems I had with my education there, which,
Mm-hmm.
so good for them. But I think the biggest takeaway I got from the conversation was that had been she had talked with John Lasseter about how much money it takes to make a feature length animated film, and man, were his numbers bad. Like, he said he wouldn't be able to make a feature animated film for less than 150 million dollars, which to me is just hilarious because obviously, like, I work at Sony Animation. If you go to Box Office Mojo, you can see our, even like, from successful to unsuccessful, our films are in the range of like 30 to 60 million dollars, and they look great. So I mean, we got Best Picture, was it last year or the year before? So it's like, you can make it for much cheaper than that. And then, like, we're a mid-range studio. There are like low budget animation studios that make features. Like, SCAD could make a feature if they wanted to, which was the whole point of our conversation, is I was trying to convince her that SCAD could make a feature animated film if they wanted to easily.
Yeah.
But she was like, no, we can't afford that. I'm like, I think you're talking to the wrong people. Also, John Lasseter, kind of a scumbag as a human being, so we're not going to get into that. Didn't bring that up because I'm far more diplomatic in those conversations.
Yeah, I wonder, like, how many people, like, how many, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm the product of, I made a 52-minute documentary out of SCAD. Like, I siphoned all of the artists to animate 10 animated scenes, and I made a film for no money for the most part, like maybe a few
Yeah,
grand. And I made a feature length documentary that I did not want to submit to any film festival, but it was a great learning experience,
it was not
like,
as bad as you're talking about it. I think you should have. I saw it, and I'm harsh on things. I feel like it was definitely your first documentary, but like that, your feature length documentary, but it doesn't make it as bad as you're remembering it. Here's the thing.
oh no,
I
I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. I just, the audio was
Okay,
bad. So I don't want to waste money on festival fees, because
I
I
don't
knew that
know.
okay, well, I
That's
was too
one factor.
idealistic. I was too idealistic, thinking that I'd get into South by with my first doc. So,
Yeah. That's
so,
we the problem is, like, it's hard because you invest so much time and emotion and energy into a work.
yeah,
Um, and then when you see the final result, it's never going to reach where it was in your head before you made it. Um, at least for me personally. And so I'll go through a period of mourning where I feel like I failed myself. I'll hate what I made. I do this with all my short films. I'll still promote it because I have to. I've invested so much of my time and energy into it. And then maybe a year or two later, someone will say, "Oh, I really liked, I thought Senescent was really meaningful, or Brutal Kawaii was
Hmm.
hilarious." And then I'll go back and I'll watch it and I'll be like, "Huh, that's only half as terrible as I remembered." So I don't know. It's a weird relationship, at least I have with previous media. And I think like with
I
with
think a lot of
sound,
people have that. Like, there's actors that will specifically never, like, they'll have been nominated for an Oscar or something for their acting performance. Like Adam Driver, for instance, never seen any of the Star Wars movies. He refuses.
wow,
Yeah, like he will
I,
not
I
watch
respect that.
anything that he will not watch anything. Oh, I love the guy. Total plug to Adam Driver if he's ever watching. Like,
Yeah,
no,
he's
but
cool.
he's just such a brilliant interview like actor. And like I got to like watch a movie where he was a bus driver. Recommend the movie, by the way. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah,
It's called like,
Patterson.
yes, yes, that's what it's called. Yeah, and he did like a talk after, and that's where he said, he's like, yeah, I can't ever bring myself to watch the movie I'm in or whatever. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And they're like, well, where were you when we were watching the movie here? And he's like, I was eating lunch or something. He's like, I was not in the room.
Yeah,
So
and to a lesser degree, I don't watch a lot of the VFX movies I work on,
yeah,
but that's a different thing because I don't put myself into them too much emotionally.
right.
Um, a lot of it's just lack of interest. Like I don't care what happens in Pirates of the Caribbean 6 or 7. I don't even know which one I worked on in terms of numbers. But then on the flip side, something like Angry Birds 2, where we had such a blast making it, and it was the first time I was a lead matte painter, and I had a lot of creative control, a lot more than I normally do. The director was just a delight. Like he would have us laughing in reviews constantly. It was just such a fun movie to make. That one I watched in theaters and I've rewatched multiple times on Blu-ray just because you're not just watching a movie, you're reliving an experience. And if the experience is good, it doesn't really matter if the what the movie is, it's a
Hmm.
encapsulation of that period.
Sure.
So anyway, that's my take on it. That's why I've only seen some movies that have been well rated that I've worked on a couple times, and then movies that I've worked on that maybe have been dumped on, but I had a great blast with, watch a couple times. So I don't know.
All right. So, I guess the last few things is here is that you recently have had some success with a script you've written, and I was just kind of curious what your how did you like? Did you send out the script to a bunch of screenwriting competitions, or did you seek this one out for a reason? Like, what's your method? Like, once you finish your script, like, why send it out? Like, you could just still make the film. So, like, why send it out to like a competition first?
Mm-hmm. That is a good question. I have a step-by-step process that I'm going through. It is not based on experience or anything smart. It's just what I think is the best practice. And of course, I'll refine this process as I see what Thin Blue Veins does, which is the working title of the script. So by the time anyone watches this, this might be out of date with what I'm currently thinking. But when I was writing the script, I was trying not to tell a story that I thought would sell or would even be profitable. I just wanted to write a movie that I wanted to see. That was the main focus all the way through. And of course, I made different passes of the script for, you know, bolster character, bolster theme, place, all that stuff, work on the structure. But once I felt like it was done and I stopped getting notes on it from my readers, that's another thing. Make sure you have people you trust regularly, and don't send them anything bad ever. Only send them things that you think are already good to read, because then they'll be excited to read your next thing. So after feeling like this was pretty good and I didn't really have any major qualms about it myself, which is unusual for my own work, I was like, okay, so I can't make this because my estimation, the cheapest I could make this film would probably, just because of how many characters there are, the VFX that would be involved, stuff like that, it would probably be somewhere in the $1 to $5 million range. A movie I could conceivably make would be like a $200,000 to $400,000 movie. I could maybe raise those funds with a lot of effort. So this is a bit out of my reach. So what do you do with that? Well, I need to sell it to someone who can make it, or sell it to someone gullible enough to let me try to make it. And I say that in the nicest of intentions. But how do you sell it? Well, you're not going to be able to talk to anyone willing to buy it, any executive producers, any producers, as an unknown quantity. Heck, even as a known quantity, you can't. You need an agent or a manager. Here we are again, we're stuck. To get an agent or a manager, you have to already have the attention of producers, because they're not going to want to put a lot of time and effort into something which they cannot effectively turn a profit off of. So my solution was, okay, I'm going to look up some of the most well-regarded screenplay competitions. I'll narrow, I had a nice list of about 10 of them. I can't afford to apply to all those because they're expensive. And I'm not going to apply to festivals where I'm not also paying to get, the pages of notes back, simply because this is my first screenplay. If I'm not going to get any feedback that I can use to improve in the future, then it seems a bit pointless to apply. So I applied to the 3 festivals that were historically the most kind to the genre in which I was working. So the 3 festivals that didn't look down on horror thrillers, stuff like that, which was what I had written. So I wanted to have a good chance. Like, for example, I did not submit it into the Nickel Fellowship simply because they tend to go for, sorry, they tend to go for dramas,
Yes,
more
they
high
do.
concept.
I've submitted some scripts to Nichols, so.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun. I actually got some good feedback or something good about it. So that, yes,
that
I
is
understand.
Good.
Yeah, that don't remember when or where or how, but yes, so continue your, yes.
So the methodology is, if I get good notes and or place, my goal is at least in the semifinalists with the script, then I have a nice little package I can take to managers, to agents, and be like, hey, this is the level of confidence I'm getting. Are you interested? Chances are they'll say no. But let's backtrack a step. How do you find managers and agents? Oh, that's a good question. Well, look at films that are similar to what you want to write. So for me, in terms of budget, in terms of subject matter, recently the movie Crawl, the movie Ready or Not, the Child's Play remake, like these are all in similar budgets and tones to that which I have written. So what I would do is I'd look up the screenwriters involved. Probably I'd have to subscribe to like a year of IMDb Pro or whatever to see who is representing them, to get the contact information of who's representing them. Then I could use my new query package, pumping up Thin Blue Veins and kind of announcing myself a little bit, to send to them. Odds are nothing will happen. This script will generate a little bit of a ripple, then it will sit on my shelf for quite some time. Is that the end of the story? No, my friend, that is only the beginning. Because you can't just write a script and then that's the end of it. You always have to be writing more. So this process is going to keep looping as I'm continually writing more and more. I'm already probably midway through being happy with an outline for the next one. Not in a series, but like just the next script. And you got to keep pushing it in that regard. But what happens with the scripts that never sell? Because most of them don't. And even the ones that do, that doesn't really mean they get made. They might just get bought so someone else doesn't make them, which is what happens frequently from what I understand. So for me, if I have a script that hasn't sold and is sitting around and I like it, as my YouTube channel continues to grow, my capability for fundraising grows. So there will come a time when the mathematical calculation factors out to where I'm like, yeah, I can pull the trigger on this. I can start figuring out how to make this movie. It just depends on the script I've got laying around, and it depends on where I'm at in terms of Hungry Creature Productions. Let's say that doesn't happen. Well, I've got a killer script I believe in. I can start using that years down the road. Maybe I will start to adapt it into a novel. Maybe I'll make start chunking it up into bite-sized bits and start releasing it as a series of short films. Um, it's, nothing ever dies. It can always be
You
used for something else.
you could do a radio play
Exactly. Like there are many, many
with
ways it can be
sound
used.
effects
So
and everything. Like people do love, like you could almost do that first and then sell it as a package. Well, you already have this part, so now let's go make the actual thing, and then have it like take that audio down and then re-release it with like the Blu-ray or so. I don't know. I'm just saying, like yeah, you definitely have a lot of more modes of transportation, or you could go try to get some of it animated or
exactly.
whatever.
And
Yeah.
there's like a whole life cycle a screenplay can have. It doesn't need to be did well, got representation, the end. Like that's not your only ticket. You there are other avenues. And from my experience with trying anything, the established path is probably not going to yield any results, and I'll probably have to do something on my own. And that's I think that's part of being a motivated artist, is you have to be content with where you end up,
Yeah.
while not dulling the blade of your ambition. So you continually push forward while at the same time understanding that just because you're pushing in a certain direction doesn't mean you're going to land perfectly in that direction. So,
No, it's really good advice for sure. I think people come out of school with this like idealized notion of what they're going to be, and they don't really look at that plan C, D, E, F, G is actually more viable than the first three ideas. Like it's kind of a simple thing, but when you draw something, you have to come up with 50 thumbnails before you hit the right thing that works. Like
yeah.
same thing in life. And so that's like a really good option. Like I'm kind of a failed playwright screenwriter, like to be honest. And I've only found that after hundreds of hours of writing that what I'm actually good at is poetry and fiction writing and memoir. Like I'm actually good for like doing the traditional route, which I thought was not for me. And it's just funny that like you try something for so long and you're like, all right, I guess there's a fork in the road, let me do that. And then immediately it's something else started happening. So it's kind of cool. Like that's I think one of the crazy things with being an artist and a creator is that nothing's really set in stone. It's jagged and like you're forming your own path. You're creating your own path. Like a consumer consumes, a creator creates, and creators create things that don't exist. So we literally create the path that doesn't exist yet. And so all you people out there who are call yourself artists, are you really an artist? Or are you really just someone going to sit back and watch life happen to you instead of having life, thrown for you? Because you and I have both lived all over the country chasing this thing we thought was our dream, and have failed many times doing it. But I think it's through our failures that we have learned that, other things have fallen by the wayside. Like I've had some really normal things that everyone else seems to apparently know how to do. I don't know how to do it. And I'm like learning for the first time how to do things. And
Yeah.
so, I don't know. I just
well, failure is so important, man.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
Failure brings opportunity, because when you fail, you are then presented with options. Okay, I'm going to try this again. And what am I going to change? What do I need to learn between now and trying again? Or I'm going to course correct. This isn't the right path, and I'm going to go in a different direction. And both of those things, I think, lead to much more fulfilling places than if you had started right out of the gate and automatically succeeded. Like, what kind of lame story is that? You watch a movie and then it's like, our hero is faced with a challenge. They have surmounted it. Roll credits. All right, cool. What a story. So that's not the way life is, thank goodness, because then everyone would be supremely boring. I don't know if it's worth being interesting, but
some people are pretty supremely boring. So
that's true. But I feel, there's this weird thing, because I think we might be wired a bit differently, to where we can't just exist. We have to be attempting to reach something. Where I don't want to say climbers, because it makes me think of someone in a business suit and they're part of a pyramid scheme and they sell insurance. So that's
Yes,
like,
yes, that's
that's not what I
exactly us.
mean.
We're
Yeah,
vision
that's us.
questers.
We're climbers. Um, but what I mean is, we aspire, and that aspiration is not built in dreams. That aspiration is built in struggle, and that's a certain kind of person. And I don't know that I, as someone who aspires, I don't know that I can look at someone who's not programmed that way and be like, well, that's dumb, even though I've caught myself doing that. At the same time, it's just that I can't understand their approach to life. It's not something that I can relate to. I don't know.
No, yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy how people are definitely wired differently, and it's definitely not being in the visual effects and film industry professions anymore. It's
Congrats.
uh, I mean full time, where all of my coworkers are as insane as you and I, but it's some days I really prefer being around a bunch of crazies because being around people who aren't wired like us it's frustrating because you try to
Yeah.
say something or you try to do something and they think of you as this genius and you're like, no, I'm actually really, really bad at this. You just don't know anything, so you think I'm awesome. And
Yeah.
I like sometimes wish someone else could like swoop in and be like, and this is how you do this, and like, but I'm the best they have. And so it's just interesting to be in worlds where people are like, actually, you have a service, you have a set of skills, like, Liam Neeson and people.
Yeah. Or
It's weird.
I recently had I ran into someone who I guess they were trying to be passive or whatever, but they like
hmm
critiqued my taste. They were like, "Yeah, but you don't know what good is," you know. And in my head, like
What?
that's the greatest insult uh, you can give to someone whose entire ambition and livelihood is built on their taste, their desire
Yeah,
to create something. But I think
right.
to people who aren't really wired that way, who have like maybe very low ambition, and this is just like sports or passivity in their mind, this is that's a valid jibe. But uh, I don't know, like I feel like maybe I'm the boring person sometimes because this is literally all there is to me. This is it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I understand. That's why I get so excited when I like find new hobbies because I'm like,
Yeah,
this is the greatest thing ever. And but yeah. So
an
anyway,
expansion.
I want to tell you thank you so much for coming on the Articles of Antiquity video interviews.
Thanks so much for
This
having me.
this has been super fun, and we look forward to seeing what you're up to in the future. I'll definitely link to all of your awesome social media stuff so everyone can check out all the things that you have going on whenever you do end up wherever you are, at what time period you are watching this. Hopefully, you're not watching this in a pandemic, and if you are, I hope you are enjoying it. To fill your brains with some sort of inspiration. But thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been awesome. So thank you. So see you later, Josh. Thanks so much.
It's been good. Thanks so much.